Intel's appointed Lip-Bu Tan as its new CEO, succeeding Pat Gelsinger, who resigned in December 2024. Tan was formerly the CEO at Cadence Design Systems and was also a board member at Intel. He aims to revolutionize the company by streamlining operations and focusing on advanced chip manufacturing, including AI server chips, to better compete with industry leaders like TSMC. Following the announcement, Intel's stocks surged nearly 8%, reflecting the optimism about this strategic vision. Intel's had a bit of a rocky path for the last few years. Stephen, is this the way to get off that rocky path onto a smoother road?
Well, it's a way to get off of the rocky path on a smoother road, and the Wall Street seems to think so. For what it's worth, the stock jumped quite a lot on the announcement of this last week, which, by the way, happened just after we recorded the rundown last week. But that being said, I think that there's a lot of nuance here. Now, first off, I do have to disclaimer, I did talk about this on the Textron Gang on Friday, and there's a lot more insight there from the rest of the Textron crew. But if I can boil it down here, the gist here is, number one, Intel needed a new CEO. They needed someone who really understood the chip industry, someone who could really come in there as a bit of an engineer, but also a leader who could come in and direct things, and somebody with vision, somebody who has a plan for what to do with this company going forward. And Lip-Bu Tan basically checks all those boxes. He is someone who really understands the chip making industry. He led Cadence Design Systems, which was an EDA company. They made the software that makes the chips. Basically, think of it as a word processor for making computer chips. Cadence is the undisputed leader. They're the Microsoft Word of that industry. And they are basically an essential tool if you're going to have a foundry business. So if you want to have customers come in and manufacture chips, you really must have the support of the EDA tools. And so all of this is to say that this is someone who deeply understands this market. But yet wasn't, like an AMD or a Qualcomm exec, and so that's a pretty clever one. The other thing is that he did serve on Intel's board, as you mentioned, for a few years, which means that he understands the state of things at Intel. He understands, he knows the board members, he knows the executives, they know him. All of this sounds great. What I'm hearing, though, from insiders and from the analysts at the Futurum Group and others who follow the company is that there's a little more than meets the eye here. If we want to read the smoke signals coming out of Intel, it's important to understand Lip-Bu Tan was on the group on the board. Apparently, what I'm hearing is that apparently was the pro-split part of the board. Essentially, they wanted to not have Intel foundry and chip design and sales businesses be the same company necessarily. That came to a head in August, and Pat Gelsinger seems to have won that argument. Lip-Bu Tan left the board at that time. But of course, Gelsinger was forced out after, and here he is back. So, if we're looking at what that means for Intel, it probably means that a split of the foundry and chip design business is much more likely to happen than we would have thought. And what might that split look like? Again, if we listen to the analysts and what they're hearing from their sources and public information, what we're hearing is that it seems that it would probably be a consortium of money that would come in and maybe set up a joint venture or something like that, that would take the foundry business, that's the Intel chip making business, including the brand new, Halo factory in Columbus, Ohio, and split that off as a semi-independent company, semiconductor, semi-independent. I guess you have to forgive my pun there. That Intel would still be involved in, but would be perhaps a minority shareholder alongside a group of customers, maybe to include companies like NVIDIA or OpenAI or even AMD. If that happened, that could be a really interesting outcome here. Another partner that we're hearing getting involved in that consortium, though, would be TSMC, which seems a little strange. That would be sort of like General Motors and Ford forming a joint venture or something. That would reduce competition, would probably raise some eyebrows. But as long as they're a minority shareholder, I think that it would probably pass. And that would allow maybe a little bit more friendly competition between the future Intel Foundry and the TSMC established business. So we'll see where this goes. Like I said, so far, the word that I'm hearing is cautiously optimistic from folks within Intel, from the analysts who study the space, and from folks in the industry who are Intel customers. So all of this bodes pretty well for Intel and pretty well for Lip-Bu-Tan. So stay with it here. We will be covering this story in much more detail as we learn the direction that Intel is going to head.